I think it's his middle name, Joe Pedantic Crowe.
Joe,
Are we related?
I think so. We are.
On his mother's side.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you guys, thank you for coming and hanging out with us. It is Thursday night. This is the American Sci-Fi Classics Track. We are having a nerd party. We are having our weekly quarantine panel where we stop freaking out about the garbage in real life and just talk about nerd stuff for like an hour. And tonight, this is very exciting, we have got 2 brand new victims / participants that have never been on the quarantine panels before. So before we introduce them, let's introduce our long-term veterans. Thank you, Deanna.
Hi, I am Deanna. I run the Revolution SF Facebook page, and I'm in Canada.
And can't get away, but why would you want to?
No, because why? Socialized medicine, people.
Yeah.
Why am I leaving?
Well,
I would never leave. I'm not leaving.
I thought the RCMP was after you.
Yeah, I got one of those scam calls telling
There's
me
that too.
One of my
And
tweetboxes.
one
Probably from you.
internet south of me, my unindicted co-conspirator, I'm not doing whatever it is you're trying to make me do, Gary. That's not cool. Ah! Gary Mitchel, how are you, sir?
I am well, and apparently going to be on Star Trek Lower Decks this week, apparently.
Yes.
Look, guys,
Wow.
if you're not watching Star Trek Lower Decks, you should be, for lots of reasons, but also because Gary Mitchel is on it. Or they talk about him. I don't want to spoil it.
Yes.
But I don't know if you remember that. He was in a very famous episode of the original series.
I just figured Gary's going to have that quote embroidered on the back of a jacket.
No, it's a tattoo. It's a tattoo.
He'll get a
It's
tattoo.
a good quote.
Yeah. Yep.
But anyway,
But yeah, and this is
Everybody,
my legally obliged to tell everybody that it is my real name. It's not a nom de plume. It's not a name I took for myself. It's legit my real name.
yep. Now, speaking of people with real names, here are our 2 brand new contestants, victims, participants of the on the American Sci-Fi.
You take that back.
Just introduce yourselves, if you would, starting with one internet to my left. Lacee.
Hi, I'm Lacey. I also work with the Dragon Con folks. I work with the charity event staff running the auctions every year. So that's how I kind of got the invite, I think, to this. Yeah.
And 1, 2, 3 internets away from me, my longtime friend, Sarah, one of the first people who admitted to following things that I did on the internet.
Yeah, I think it's been more than 20 years, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the second and third people were Gary and Deanna.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So hi, I'm Sarah. I am from DC, and I've known Joe forever, and I'm so happy to be here and finally see him and nerd stuff. I have a degree in marine bio, and I'm a graphic designer. So, and I'm wearing an Oregon Trail T-shirt.
Yay!
weakness. So tonight, we managed to get we managed to get to our topic in less than 10 minutes. Tonight, our topic is Alan Rickman, who has been great in everything.
Mm-hmm.
So what we'll do is, why don't we'll just go around the interwebs with each of you guys and just name a thing that you like Alan Rickman in, and we'll talk about that, and then we'll do another thing, and we'll go until I would say we'll go until we run out of Alan Rickman things, but we'll be here till next Tuesday.
Yep.
So let's start with one of the new kids, Lacey. First Alan Rickman thing that you that pops into your head.
Well, I celebrate every Christmas by watching Die Hard. So
See?
we can always start there.
Yep.
What is Alan Rickman is the quintessential European villain, Euro trash villain.
Quintessential is the word I used in my notes.
What? I think
Now
we're
that-
related, Sarah.
That role is considered to be one of the top 10 villain roles ever in films. Interestingly enough, he's the only actor that appears twice on that list. So I think the other one will show up, but that was actually his first film role, was Hans Gruber. He has done TV stuff in England, because in England there's a very rich television, addict to British television here. There's a very rich television tradition, but that was his first film role, and boy, did it make an impression. Like, it's honestly one of the most iconic performances. As we all say, it's not Christmas till Hans Gruber falls off of Nakatomi Plaza, right? So
yeah, I mean, and also British TV didn't quite have the stigma that American TV for the longest time had. I mean, we've kind of grown away from that now, but it was easier to be a TV star in England and still be respected as a serious actor.
Well, and that's because it was all produced by, it wasn't, like the networks or any of that. That's not how TV works over there, So
he comes, like a lot of British actors do, like if you watch your Doctor Who's or your Marples or your Poirots, you're gonna see people that you now recognize from big film because it pays the bills, and the way in which they fund television and film in Britain is different. You have to pay a license for your television, and that funds the BBC, and so the BBC basically funds all sorts of productions, which keeps British actors in food.
And to be fair, there's a limited number of British actors, so it's like, we need somebody. Okay, we'll get you.
You say that, but then again, you start thinking about, like, again, as somebody who watches like Midsummer Murders, it's just like all the doctors have been through these mystery shows and all of these amazing people, and so they really do a good job of supporting this and talent. Like, he comes out of the Royal Academy of Drama and the Royal Shakespeare Company. Like, he's got chops, and in fact his first TV role, which is available on BritBox, kids, if you want it, is in Romeo and Juliet, where he plays Tybalt.
Yeah.
He's a very young in it. But back to Die Hard. It is, I mean, it was such a cultural phenomenon. If you think about it, Bruce Willis is at the top of his acting game at that point in his career. So it's the top of his popularity. Was that before or I think it was just before he released the album, the music album, Bruno, The Return of Bruno. So that star power brings everybody in, but then you get this performance of Hans Gruber, this menacing, brutally efficient, and very well written too. The manipulation that Hans Gruber does of the authorities, pretending to be there because they're a terrorist organization, but they're really not, right? Like, it's so layered and subtle, and somebody with his acting experience can pull that off without it being a caricature, without it being a cartoon.
And I was just about to say that had it been anybody else, I can't think of any other actor where it wouldn't have seemed like he was just chewing the scenery.
Yeah.
Like it would have been cartoonish.
They left that for Hart Bochner.
Yeah.
Nothing against Hart Bochner. Like, that character was just built to do that. But yeah,
and that's the bonus of hiring classically trained actors, in that they can do those kind of roles because they've done the Shakespeare roles, which without the proper training can be cartoonish and buffoonish and stupid, and not the subtle menace that you need to do a Hamlet to do an Othello.
Well, and that was one of the great things about Alan Rickman, is that he was just as comfortable doing the Shakespeare and doing like the merchant ivory costume dramas as he was doing something absurd like Galaxy Quest or Dogma, equally as comfortable.
Well, and he never made it onto Doctor Who, but if you think about it, like, wearing leggings, you could wear hose either playing somebody from the 17th century, or you can play hose playing somebody from the 44th century. You know, same thing, right? Like, it's so yeah, no, so yeah, Die Hard is a phenomenal movie, and just
because, well, it's really hard to pull off that he seems so friendly, he seems so charming, and then the menace. You know, just the scene where he's talking to the head business guy, or when he's talking to the guy, he's like, "Oh yeah, no, we can." You know, no, dude, he's going to shoot you in the face. Shut up.
Yeah,
I love that about Die Hard, that the very nerdy characterization of it in the last few years as a Christmas movie, which it technically always was. I mean, nothing has changed. It's still the movie, the same one that it was years ago, but we've embraced it now, and it's gotten that way in popular culture. And there is a Christmas book, a Die Hard Christmas
book,
kids book.
And kids, if you haven't done this, go Google Die Hard Advent calendar, and somebody built an advent calendar of the Nakatomi Plaza with Hans Gruber falling down for every day of December.
That is
by the time you get to Christmas, he's at the bottom of the Nakatomi Plaza, and I'm just like,
yeah. But we could spend. Lacey, you were gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna say there's also a board game that I just got in the mail. There's a
the board game.
Ravensburger, I think.
Ravensburger, Ravensburger.
I haven't even opened it yet. I'm like, woo.
Ravensburger has been nailing it with these games based off of properties. The Jaws game is a lot of fun.
Yep.
That game is fun. They just put out a Gargoyles.
Yep, and they just did the Disney series for all the villains.
Yes.
Yeah, Villainous. Yes, Villainous.
Yeah, Villainous is another fantastic game.
Phenomenal game.
But we can talk about we can talk about Die Hard all night.
We'll eventually do a Die Hard panel at some point. So let's go from Lacey to Deanna.
I'm going to take one that was obvious. I have a bunch of obscure ones, but I'm going to take this one because this is, we talked about this. It's hard because there's so many, but we talked about this one in the Robin Hood panel, and it's still probably my favorite performance of his, and that is the Sheriff of Nottingham from Robin Hood. And the reason why I love it, like I mentioned on that panel, is that he is doing a British pantomime villain. So if you're not familiar with the tradition of the British pantomime, it is a piece of theater that is broad slapstick comedy. It is aimed at children. There is normally an over-the-top villain in the panto. And in the panto, which is the nickname they call it, when that villain comes on, he's normally trying to, steal. It's all based on fairy tales or folk tales, and he's trying to ruin it for the hero. And the kids will boo him. And it's normally a man. It's very rarely a woman. And the kids will boo him and be like, boo, boo. And at certain points, the villain actually breaks the fourth wall, turns to the audience and screams at the kids, right? And actually says things like, we'll cancel Christmas. And so when you watch that, like when I first saw that, I thought he's doing a panto villain. Like, this is a pantomime villain. I here where I grew up, there would be a theater troupe from Toronto that would come up every year at Christmas and do a pantomime, British pantomime, and I have seen that villain. I've booed at it a million times, and that's what he's doing, and it's so genius. And the other thing I have to mention is that that wasn't those lines that we find iconic from him from that movie weren't originally in the script. When he got the script, he was deeply troubled by the writing. He got together with a couple of his friends and this is where Joe's going to make some bad jokes now, in the British equivalent of Pizza Hut, which is called Pizza Express. And they sat down and went over the script and rewrote his lines. He's like, you've got to help me. I need better lines. And so they came up with, I'll cancel Christmas, come at 7, you come at 10 o'clock, bring a friend. I'm going to cut your heart out with a spoon. All that stuff they came up with along with him. And then he just showed up on set and delivered these lines. And they weren't in the script.
They were good.
But they were good and they kept them. And so to me, one of the reasons why I love that performance so much is that it is, to me, just symbolic of a master craftsman who knows how to I want to say steal the movie from Kevin Costner because he does.
Yeah.
He just runs right off with it. He should have been playing Robin Hood because he steals the movie. But he's a master at acting and a master craftsman, and knows that when he's given not great stuff, he has to do something to make it iconic. And that movie was early enough along in his Hollywood career that I think he knew he had to keep making impressions in order to get the next thing, right? So it's a great performance, and I hope everybody's seen it, but if you haven't, you should definitely check it out.
He was just so mustache twirly in the most delicious way.
Snidely whiplash, you know?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he knew exactly what the role kind of was, and was able to just he just leaned into it. And I can't imagine the movie with somebody else doing it, or especially trying to play it straight, because everybody else is treating it like this. Oh, it's this serious drama, and Robin Hood. We're telling the story of Robin Hood and all this, and he is just there isn't a piece of scenery left without his teeth mark in it.
Well, Robin Hood is frequently a topic of British pantomimes because it's a British folklore that's very well known, and it's in the public domain. So it's frequently a topic for your British panto. So it's right in that tradition.
And it's hard to find anyone who can play a villain with such menace that at the drop of a hat can just go into a tantrum. Because that's basically what he does. He just goes from that quiet, calm, collected one sentence that just go, to screaming off the other end.
Yeah.
And that's what adds to his menace, if you think about it. He's
Absolutely.
Crazy. He's like a psychopath, and you are not safe.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments in the whole movie is when he goes past the statue of himself after he'd been scarred, and somebody had put the scar on the statue, and he walks, and just his reaction is perfect.
Yeah, everything about the Sheriff of Nottingham. I hear his voice anytime I see Robin Hood anything. He's the best in that. So let's go now to Sarah.
All right. Well, I have to pick Galaxy Quest.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I saw it in a theater. I own it. I've seen it, dozens and dozens of times. And he is so fantastic in that movie. And it's this completely absurd, brilliant, beautiful comedy. And Alan Rickman has such gravitas that he puts into this ridiculous character, this drama queen character, who could be the most annoying person on the planet, but he's lovable. He's the lovable curmudgeon who is the kind of dad of the group. And it's just he's so brilliant. One lovely little touch that I adore in that movie is that you never see him without his prosthetic. He is never ever without his prosthetic in any of the scenes.
Even when it's kind of falling out, he's got the hair,
but it's still there. It's still there. Even when it's at the beginning of the movie, when he's at home and it looks like he's just gotten out of the shower because he has a robe on and a towel, but he still has the prosthetic head on.
He is fully committed to character.
Oh, yeah.
But and I can't talk about Galaxy Quest without talking about the most powerful scene in that movie is when Quillick has been hit and is laying there.
And it becomes so real to him.
Yeah. And he finally delivers, the by Grabthar's hammer in the way it's intended.
Yeah.
And I can't watch that scene. Like everybody else, I've watched the movie dozens of times. I still can't watch. I'm thinking about it now. I'm welling up.
Goosebumps. I don't know. You just said good. Now I got goosebumps.
Yeah.
In many ways, that performance is a bit autobiographical. If you think about it, you have a classically trained actor who does one role, and it becomes the iconic role that he's remembered for forever. Now, Alan Rickman doesn't do one role that he's remembered for forever, but I think that in his performance, you can see what many a British actor has gone through, where they have been in this, have had one big iconic breakout role, and everybody wants them to say their catchphrase 100 million times. And so it's such subtlety in that performance, even though it's a comedy, and he's landing the slaps all over the place. Like, I see you managed to lose your shirt. It's just there's so much stuff in there that where he's landing the broad comedy lines that he's very good at.
Well, and
phenomenal at.
Obviously his character is based on Spock.
Yeah.
Because he's very, measured, sort of unemotional character. But Alexander is so completely he's like a teenage boy throwing hissy fits left, right, and center about little things until it's not anymore. Until he gets it.
I do call Galaxy Quest the best Star Trek movie ever made.
So do most people.
It really is.
Star Trek or I mean, there are people in Star Trek who have said that. Gene Roddenberry, I think, possibly said something to that effect. But yeah, it's
the thing is, Galaxy Quest didn't have to be as good as it was.
Well, have you guys seen the documentary Never Surrender?
Yeah,
I have not yet seen it.
I believe it's on Prime.
I think it is.
My friend Jack directed it, and
it's
such a beautiful tribute. And the number of people from the movie that they got to take part in this documentary is phenomenal. It's so great, and of course they all have incredible things to say about Alan Rickman. From all accounts of everybody he's ever worked with, he was just the loveliest person.
Which isn't that interesting that he played so many villains and menacing and terrifying characters and jerks. We haven't even gotten into his jerk face roles where he's a screaming jerk.
Yeah.
And yet everybody who's met him says that he's just the kindest person. So yeah.
But yeah, I think his voice has a lot to do with that.
Oh yeah.
His voice is so iconic.
Yeah, and he has a cadence. I mean, he's I mean, it's not Walken, but he's like number 2. Like, if I hear him, I automatically, it doesn't matter what's on TV, what's behind me, whatever, or if someone does an impression, I'm like, it's him.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mr. Gary,
it's really hard to pick a first one. Because
pick us your second one.
Yeah. Because Galaxy Quest, fantastic. Die Hard, fantastic. And I'm torn between two, and the one I'm gonna go with first is one of the first roles where I saw him, because I caught other movies late. It was weird, but Truly, Madly, Deeply.
Oh.
Which is a wonderful little supernatural romantic comedy where he is in love with this lady. She's an interpreter, and he dies and comes back as a ghost and haunts her and he's haunting her mainly because she can't move on from the relationship. And it's just a beautiful performance. It's touching. It's sweet. He's got this wonderful mustache. And throughout the whole movie, he died of I think it was pneumonia. So through the whole movie, he's got a cold.
Cute.
It's just little stuff like that throughout this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a wonderful little movie about learning to let go and move on, but also about love, and it's a drama, it's a fantasy, it's but. It was a wonderful performance. I saw him in that, and I was like, I don't know who this guy is, but I should pay attention to him. And then I saw Die Hard and went, wait, that's the same guy?
Yeah.
Because he could do that. He could play your good, dramatic, solid roles, as well as being, your over-the-top Hans Grubers. And
yeah, his versatility was unmatched.
And
what I love about Truly, Madly, Deeply is you expect a certain thing from a movie like this. You think, oh, they're going to be together at the end. And it doesn't work like that. This this movie just upended every expectation, and he, in a way, kind of played the villain in this movie. But it was on purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't want to. If you haven't seen it, watch it. I don't want to spoil anything of it if you haven't, because it's a treat. Yeah,
what I find interesting,
it's a treat. Go ahead.
Yeah, what I find interesting is that movie comes out the same year as Ghost, which, if you think about it, that's like essentially the same plot. Some differences, but
well, he wasn't murdered.
No, but it's. I mean, there are some differies. I admit that. It's Ghost is American. There has to be violence.
Right.
But
we should put that on a button.
Ghost should be, it's American. It has to be violence. But it's just interesting that was in the culture at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was, and so here we have Truly, Madly, Deeply, and we have Ghost coming out in the same year. I needed to point that out. Sorry. Talk about pedantic, but yeah.
That's how we started tonight.
Welcome to it. Yeah. No, tonight was the first night we've ever been pedantic. I don't know what we were doing this whole other time.
And Sherman, I am glad I lost you a bet. To answer your question earlier, Sherman, the Die Hard was after the Seagram's commercials, which is why one of the reasons when the Die Hard trailer was playing before the movie came out, when people saw Bruce Willis, they were laughing in the theaters, which is why the studio pulled Bruce Willis off of all the posters until the movie was a hit, and then they put him back.
I like that we were able to get a Quigley Down Under reference. Yeah, this panel.
That's my number 3. I'm keeping my number 2 in my pocket.
So let's go back to Lacey.
Well, I do Christmas in July every year, and I watch Love Actually on my birthday.
There you go.
It's one of those ones I can watch any day of the year, and I love it because it's just got such a wonderful message, and it's got like all of the actors in it.
Yes.
all of them are
every good actor is in that movie.
100%. And the fact of the matter is, he does in that film, he really does play kind of he's not redeemable. Like it's like what he's done is, you see it happen, you see the advancement of it, and you think all along he's going to be like, oh, I can't do this, and he doesn't. And you just, even the final scenes where, they in the airport, it's like you don't really know if it's going to be okay. So
it's gut twisting, his performance in let me posit this. I feel like he's a bigger villain in this than he is in Die Hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he's a cad.
I mean, it depends on whether you think that killing a bunch of people or breaking Emma Thompson's heart is worse.
I was going to bring that up. He broke Emma Thompson's heart, which immediately
killing people, Emma Thompson's heart.
I mean, he's really good at breaking Emma Thompson's heart. They've worked together. They worked together 6 times, and he directed her in Winter's something.
Winter Guest.
Yes, Winter Guest. Yeah. I keep switching it with Winter's Bone.
Yeah.
Not the same movie.
No, different movie altogether. But yeah, and we should probably do a whole panel on Emma, but the scene when she realizes what's going on, when she opens that Christmas gift, it's just, give me that back. Put that back in my chest.
She's in the room, she's crying, and all of a sudden she's like, nope, okay, I'm good. And just you watch her, for her children, she has to not be crying.
And we've all either done that or known someone who's done that.
Yeah. I mean, that's just heart-wrenching. Yeah.
And question, guys, have you ever done have you thought about Emma doing Emma for one of your battle of the your cage offs? We
should totally do an Emma. We need a clever title for it.
I mean, have you ever done a female cage off where you've got a woman through all of her roles?
Well, we've only done it once so far, or twice now. We've done it. We've done it with Nicolas Cage, and we've done it with Arnold. Yeah. So we're due.
To be honest, though, to be fair about his role in Love Actually, before we scoot off of it, he does have, in my opinion, the funniest scene in the film.
No.
Where he's just like, yes. I'll take it, and it's just, and you can just see the look on his face, and he's slowly just going insane behind his eyes, and it's delightful.
Mm-hmm. Every time I hear the word gift wrapped, I think of that scene.
So Deanna is next up.
I cannot believe this lasted this long. So this is the other one that I was torn about whether it was going to be my my first, but I'm going to have to talk about Severus Snape in the Harry Potter saga.
Severus Snape. Severus Snape.
I mean, when they announced that, when they started doing the casting announcements at the beginning, when they were starting to film the first movie, and they announced him, my only reaction was, well, he's fantastic. And I was willing to overlook the fact that he was probably a little old for the role, given that, you know, what he's supposed to be a contemporary with Harry's parents, because I don't know if they could have found somebody of the same age.
Well, I know originally they were going for Tim Roth, and Tim Roth turned them down to do that Planet of the Apes movie for Tim Burton.
Good job,
He
Tim.
made a good choice.
Thumbs up.
But I honestly have a hard time even picturing anybody else being able to deliver that level of menacing, because Snape's a bully.
Yeah.
Like, he's not nice to Harry, and the reason why he doesn't like Harry is because Harry's dad was mean to him, which as a teacher I find brutally offensive. I have a very different take on Severus Snape than most people, because
the long reveal before we get to that.
Yeah,
right.
Over a series of books and then movies before we find out why.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a really kind of sick reason why too.
It really,
but even then, like, yep, you didn't like his dad, and you're jealous that his mom married his dad, but you loved his mom at one point, and also you chose to be a teacher, and so, you know, like, I come to Harry Potter with my own baggage and my own biases, but take that and put that aside, I look at his performance and it is phenomenal. Like, if you look at the oiliness of his voice, it's almost like the oil is leaked off of his hair and into his voice, and his menacing, his ability to kind of like just loom in the background of these children's lives and be sort of ever present. Like, it's just top notch. It's, again, one of the best performances in the movies, and he's able to lend such gravitas to those lines, and, you know, he really adds, for even if he's not in as many scenes as we would have liked, if he's not in as many scenes as he is in the books, we still have that gift of his performance in 7 movies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go back to forever of just nice, you know.
It's so funny too, because Alan Rickman is, even as playing a villain, is nothing like the Snape in the books. I mean, Alan Rickman is single-handedly responsible for having lots and lots of people think that Snape is sexy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which he is not at all in the books.
And we also have to remember that he is the first person that that J.K. told why Snape was, because apparently making the first movie, she's like, I need to tell you a few things so it'll help you with the performance. And
yeah.
I did not know that, Gary. That kind of changes. I don't know. Well, I mean, it's one of those things. Well, how many of she had not, by the time they were doing the first movie, she had not finished all the books yet.
Yeah, she hadn't.
I think she had written 5 of them in the first movie.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but she knew where she was going.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and when we talk about his kind character, there's that very famous story of because the kids would bring their actual homework to the scenes in the classrooms where they'd sit and do their work, and they'd have to, you know, shoot the scenes of Snape walking up and down the aisles, and they were doing their actual work. And one day, Rupert Grint, Ron was doodling and did a doodle of Alan Rickman. And Alan Rickman caught him doing it, and Rupert was like, "Oh no!" And Alan apparently made him sign it, and kept it.
Yes,
it just thought it was amazing and hilarious that he had this caricature drawn by one of the young actors he worked with, and I believe Alan Rickman and what's his name, the guy who took over Dumbledore, they also pulled a big prank on
Michael Gambon,
on Radcliffe. When Radcliffe, there was a girl that he kind of liked, that was playing one of the other students, and they were all in the grade hall sleeping, and they did a fart joke where they made it seem like Daniel Radcliffe was the one farting beside the girl. Yeah. So again, just an incredible character, but also an incredibly, obviously a fun actor to work with on set. Just somebody who you could joke and kid with.
That is, I had not heard that story. As much, it's rare for any actor to get one part that people remember and rewatch forever. But Rickman has gotten at least two, and I mean, depending on how deep into it you want to go, and he is in a ton of ways kind of the best part of the Harry Potter movies. He kind of is the glue, really, acting wise.
I'm Maggie Smith.
Well, but
that's a whole other. That's a whole other track, Joe.
It's a whole other track. But I'm right and Deanna's wrong. Continue.
That rarely happens, Joe. So enjoy it.
Look, I gotta take it where I can get it. So let's see. We were at
me.
Sarah.
Okay, so my second choice. Before I do my second choice, I have a little bit of an honorable mention, just because we were talking about how great his voice is, and my honorable mention is Marvin the Paranoid Android.
Oh, yes,
Guys of the Galaxy. I don't know who else they could have picked for that. He was so mournful and it was so beautifully performed, and I love that. But my second choice is Dogma. Because there are a lot of non-film nerd people who just don't get Kevin Smith. And it's unfortunate, because Kevin Smith, I feel like, is a genius. He's a very niche genius, but a genius nonetheless.
Yeah.
And the niche is expanding as the years go by. He's done DC comic stuff and that sort of thing. But
yes,
the Dogma, like the fact that he got Alan Rickman, this classically trained, brilliant actor, to be in his absurdist sort of social satire fairy tale about fallen angels. Like, yeah. And he was so good. Like, never, like, he's so versatile, and he never half-asses it. He never phones it in. It doesn't matter what the part is. If he's taken the part, he is fully 100% committed to it and makes it brilliant, no matter what it is.
He's able to deliver that weariness and that angel would have of dealing with humanity and the world for as long as he has, and just like no living mortal can hear God's voice. We went through 3 Adams before we figured that out.
That and when he pulls down his pants. And Alan Rickman with a straight face, like, I get it, I bought it. Like, oh, this is serious. It's crazy.
He lends the movie a credibility it needed.
Yes. It could have just been, and a lot of it was, Kevin Smith and his buddies making a movie. Right. But then Alan Rickman's in it. And he just it takes a step up from that point.
Yeah.
But really, Dogma is one of I'm gonna say maybe it's Kevin Smith's best movie. He
it's certainly his most thoughtful.
Yeah, he just goes for it in this movie, and by that I mean he doesn't. There's not as much Kevin Smithiness in Dogma.
It's the least Kevin Smith of the Kevin Smith's movies.
There you go.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, and Kevin Smithiness has its place.
Absolutely. But it's
yeah. But This one.
I mean, he also got the guy who played Harold and Harold and Maude to be in it. So, I mean,
for goodness sake, Harold is in it. Yeah.
Bud Court.
Yep, Bud Court.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's actually a wonderful meditation on faith.
It is.
Yeah.
And the fact that Kevin Smith went outside to the picket lines and like stood with all the people from the Christian Coalition and like asked them if he could borrow their sign. He was like, "Hey, what are we protesting?" And have you seen it? And they're like, "No." And he's like, "Oh, cool. Let's." Well, I don't know if we cuss on this podcast or not, but he had some expletives to say. Yeah, let's get him. Fuck him. Let's get him. That's delightful.
I'd forgotten about that story.
Yeah.
Sherman, I love you. Alanis Morissette as God.
Yeah, I was going to mention that because she's Canadian and from my town. So, yeah.
If I could banish Sherman to the
next time you see her, Deanna, get me an autograph.
No, I actually know her mother. Her mother was my yoga teacher
for
many years and is one of the kindest people.
Then give me her.
No.
Then give me her mother's autograph.
I won't do that because I can tell you that I knew that Ryan Reynolds was going to ask Alanis Morissette to marry him long before because remember he was engaged to Alanis for a while, and I knew that was going to happen because Georgia told us that he was coming up without Alanis to visit, and we were all like, oh, at yoga. And then she also was told somebody who had gone to school with Alanis, who worked at a bank apparently, and the local newspaper had the story before. It was really horrible. So, and then I who did not follow the news at that point, with the next yoga class was like, so what happened? And everybody looked at me like, Deanna, it was in the news. I'm like, well, so yeah, no, I won't do that because that people have taken advantage of that family.
How has this never come up before?
Because again, just not right.
Because she's a polite Canadian.
Leave the family alone.
Which is redundant.
But Georgia, her mom is adorable.
So Gary, next up.
All right. I'm going to give my honorable mention to his second film role, The January Man, where he plays a painter who's the best friend of Kevin Kline, who's a off-the-wall private detective hunting a serial killer. Wonderful movie. It's one of my favorites, and he's great in it as this just lazy painter guy. But since no one else has mentioned it yet, I'm going to bring up, since I already made Sherman lose a bet over this one, Quigley Down Under. Because it's a great Western, and he's phenomenal in it as this Australian who wishes he was in the wild, wild West, and just is the wonderful, smarmy, evil rancher, and you just love hating him in that movie.
God, I haven't seen that since I was wee. I should probably revisit it because I hated it at the time. I was just like, 12 or whatever.
Yeah, well, you don't watch it for Tom Selleck. I mean, Tom Selleck is a decent enough actor, but he tried so hard to become a movie star, and he just didn't click. But watching it for Rickman is well worth it.
Okay.
It's streaming on, I think, Tubi right now. Because I watched it like 2 weeks ago. And now I can say, look, Quigley Down Under is very fresh for some reason.
How many of us did research for this? Like where we actually went back and watched a whole bunch of stuff, like I did, and some stuff that you hadn't seen before. Yeah, I did. I definitely did.
I went to his IMDb page and wrote notes about all the stuff I love.
Thank you.
that was my research.
Yeah. But it's just, we all know the wannabes. We all know the people who, think they would have been better if they had just done something else. And so seeing him just be a jerk through the whole movie and then get his comeuppance at the end. Mm-hmm. It's one of the great closing scenes in a movie. Actually, I love the final showdown.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There is, have we forgotten anything?
I'd like
so much that
there's a couple I'd like to mention that we haven't done.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
Yeah, Lacey.
Lacey, go ahead.
One of my favorite movies of his is Blow Dry.
I was going to mention blow dry.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's like, and it's got like such a weird, cute little like everyone in that film has become like huge.
No, it's got like Bill Nighy. It's got Natasha Richardson, like
like everyone in it.
Yeah.
Rachel, I'm terrible with names, but everyone in it has become like wildly famous, and it's this very bizarre movie about an up and coming hairdresser or wannabe hairdresser who enters a hairdressing competition.
Yeah, so Natasha Richardson is a hairdresser, and her ex-husband is Alan Rickman.
Yep.
And they had been competing in these competitive hairdressing competitions, which are a thing. And this movie kind of exposed me to these are a thing.
Right.
The movies like 2001. And she has terminal cancer. And so she wants to go and compete one last time. And she tries to convince her ex-husband to join her. And he initially says no. But then it later on comes out that she has cancer. And so he says, okay. And there's a whole bunch of things like Bill Nighy's team is cheating. And there's like people who are lying to each other. It's like if you think it comes out of that sort of small British independent film that gives us things like, oh God, Billy, what's the name of the dancing kid?
Billy Madison.
No.
Billy Elliot.
Billy Elliot. It gives us
Billy Madison is similar.
It gives us, I know it's Australian, but Strictly Ballroom, like that. It's that kind of quirky independent movie. That where it's not really that independent, but it kind of feels like a British independent movie. And it is fun. And it's Alan Rickman, I think, at one of his comedic bests, where he's delivering lines in a just like bang, 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 kind of way, and subtle and snide and sarcastic at times, but also through the exploration of this relationship that he has with Natasha Richardson, kind, lovely, willing to
it's a gentle.
Because she walked out on him with their best model, and he's never forgiven them, and so there's that kind of betrayal thing going on. But when he realizes this is her last chance to sort of leave a mark on the hairdressing world, I'll help. He's going to coach, but he's not going to cut. And then later on in the movie, he ends up cutting, and there's all sorts of stuff going on. But yeah, it's a fun movie if you can find it. Really worth watching. And again, it's, I think, the other side of Alan Rickman that we don't get to see a lot of in these sort of big Hollywood productions where he specializes in playing villains, is that soft, romantic side of Alan Rickman, where he's actually, somebody who you would want to fall in love with, right? So yeah, really a very good movie.
Yeah,
very good.
It's available on DVD because that's the only. I've never seen it on a streaming service. But,
yeah. A friend of mine has it, and she forced me to watch it a few years ago. Like, you have to see Alan Rickman in this, and I'm like, what? Oh my God, this is insane. But yeah, it's such a different movie. Another one, a bit more sort of American independent, would be Bottle Shock, where he plays a British wine dealer in Paris, basically a British man trying to sell wine to the French, and is failing miserably because the French are like, what do you know? You're British. And he is obsequious in that. He is slimy. He's trying desperately. He's trying desperately to gain the status of being a great wine seller. And so he's trying to sneak into these wine tasting events where he buys tickets, but they won't let him in, and they end up putting him at a table at the back of the restaurant where the door from the kitchen keeps hitting his table. And he's got the flight of wines, and he's trying to protect his wines. So it's cringeworthy, not his performance. His performance is brilliant, but how this character exists in this world is cringeworthy. And he is so good at it. So good. And you're just watching that and you're like, oh man, dude. Yeah, good stuff. Really good movie. And it's, I believe, currently available on Amazon. So you can probably pick that up on Prime. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Well, Sarah,
and anybody who, Sarah?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, he makes out with Norman Reedus in Dark Harbor.
Hey.
Look at that. I did not know that.
Never thought I'd be jealous of Norman Reedus.
Seriously.
Yeah, anybody who knows me would be appalled if I did not mention Sweeney Todd.
Oh, yeah.
His turn. Say what you want about the movie as adaptation of the play, but his turn as Judge Turpin was phenomenal, and was one of the few times we get to hear him sing.
Yeah.
And he brings his delicious sliminess to that role without, it's delightful.
That's one of the few I haven't seen because I really think that Johnny Depp and Tim Burton need to get a divorce.
Who gets Helena Bonham Carter?
We do.
They share on the weekends.
We get.
There's another one for your battle, like Nick Cage off would be a Helena Bonham Carter off.
Oh, mm-hmm.
And she would be good for a panel, Joe, because she is like phenomenal in the amount of properties she's done.
Oh,
like,
sure.
She's amazing.
Like, yeah. Can I also mention that he originated the role of the Vicomte, or at least played the role of the Vicomte de Valmont in the RCS, the Royal Shakespeare Company's productions of Les Liaisons Dangereuses, which becomes Dangerous Liaisons. He was in the West End and Broadway, and he got a Tony Award nomination for that. So when we talk about his stage work, like that's a fairly iconic role.
And it's funny that you say that, because when we were talking earlier about how Truly Madly Deeply and Ghost were released around the same time, I immediately jumped to, well, Dangerous Liaisons and Valmont were released around the same time, and only one did really well. And like that's just where my mind went. So I think But I just had to mention that because that's such an iconic role. If you think about Dangerous Liaisons, had some very iconic when it came out, it was scandalous and iconic, and teenage girls thought it was romantic, and now as a middle-aged woman, I'm thinking no. But he did originate or at least made famous and got a Tony for one of the key roles in that play. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, there's a million other things. Alan Rickman is just, oh my gosh, I feel like gone too soon. Well, of course, gone too soon. The man was young when he passed away. But
yeah, now that I'm at half a century, yes, he was very young.
But luckily, we have all the stuff that we've spoken about already, plus tons of other undiscovered stuff and probably a lot of our people watching now. There's stuff you'd not heard of that we brought up tonight. So there's tons of Alan Rickman stuff out there that you guys can find and enjoy. And let's go around now and everybody tell people where on the interwebs you can be found. Let's start with Gary.
You can find me here every week with him. God help us.
That was funny. The hand was like this. That was great.
I am on the Twitter as @Gary_Mitchel, Mitchell with one L. And in a few short weeks, you will also find me with him at Dragon Con as part of this track.
We're going to be doing this stuff in live action, which is the not doing it in live action is what led us to do this. So now we're going to go back to doing the thing that started this thing. And
it's going to be weird.
But it is. But we're going to keep doing this thing too.
Yes.
So Lacee.
I am Lacey Pants on all the places, and if you can't find me under that, it's the Lacey Pants. I mean, Instagram and Twitter and all the places. Yeah.
And Deanna.
I have a Twitter, Deanna Toxopeus, but that's where I talk about teaching things like teaching math and technology with children. I do post a significant amount at the RevSF Facebook page. So if you like memes, including the one I made about Gary today, head on over there. I also shared that on the American Sci-Fi Classics Track Facebook page. So make sure to head over there and like that. But yeah, that's me.
And send her every pun you can find because she loves them.
No! Oz,
nice.
Oz, you know what to do, Oz. I have a gif of Oz punching Gary in the family jewels.
In my biscuits.
I'll post that again on the RevSF Facebook page.
And Sarah.
Well, I don't tend to tweet too much, but if you feel inclined, I'm Spiffy Keen at Spiffy Keen. I try to be witty on occasion. Oh, and Joe, thank you so much for inviting me to this. And
Of course.
I have to say that at some point in the future, you and I all are going to have a discussion about the seemingly ubiquitous lack of sexual dimorphism in dwarves.
Oh, it's happening.
Yeah,
it's happening.
Okay.
I'm researching right now.
Okay.
We're doing it.
He's not.
Okay.
He never does his research.
Oh, and Deanna, under the bus is where I live, thanks to Deanna. Thank you.
Down by the river.
That's right.
It's so good to finally, talk.
Yeah. I'm so glad I got to drag you kicking and screaming onto one of these things. This is what happens because Deanna had never been on any of our panels on account of her being in another country. And now, since we started this, Deanna's been on like 20 things.
I have not been on 20, but I've been on about 5 or 6, yeah.
Cool.
Don't exaggerate.
So it's happening. So Lacee, Sarah, welcome.
So Canadian.
This is going to be, you're going to be on 87 more of these at some point. And
he knows where you live.
yeah. But guys, thank you very much. We will see you next week when our topic, Gary, is going to be
Our topic.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say our topic next week, which is the final of our quarantine panels for the season. After next week, we close up shop until after DragonCon, so you'll have to come find us there. Also, just want to make sure that everybody knows that during DragonCon, we are going to try to live stream on the Facebook some of our panels that happen in live action. And we have a few pre-recorded panels ready to go, so keep an eye on our YouTube, which you can see the link right down there.
I believe I have a chat rant on that one where I rant about Shatner for a while.
Probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
But next week, our panel is Shenanigans 2, getting back to the ATL, where we're going to use Zoom, I think, to get as many of our Classic Track irregulars as possible together for us to tell the untold tales of DragonCon, which they will not be untold because we're going to tell them. So,
we're going to actually tell them, yeah. But there's, and, whoever we get on there, everybody who goes to nerd parties and sci-fi conventions like DragonCon and DragonCon itself, you have stories, and that's what next week is about. We're just the community aspect of this whole thing that we've gotten ourselves swept up in is what we're going to do next week. And so even if you've never been to DragonCon, please tune in then, and then we'll see you in live action. And like Gary was saying, a lot of the live action stuff we're going to get onto our Facebook and our YouTube some ways, but Lacee, Deanna, Gary, Sarah, thank you. And everybody watching, thank you, guys. Everybody stay safe, and we will see you very, very soon on the interwebs, on live action, wherever. We love you guys. We will talk to you soon. But join us next week when Gary will say,
I was so drunk I wore pants.